What is the sequence of learning Vedas and Puranas in order to understand them completely and without getting confused? The Vedas and Puranas are ancient scriptures that are considered sacred in Hinduism. They contain knowledge and teachings about various aspects of life, including philosophy, spirituality, mythology, and ritual practices. To understand them completely and without getting confused, it is important to approach them systematically and methodically. Here are some steps that can be followed. Start with the Vedas. The Vedas are considered the oldest and most fundamental scriptures in Hinduism. They are divided into four main texts: Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Atharvaveda. It is recommended to start with the Rig Veda, as it contains hymns and mantras that are considered the foundation of Hindu philosophy. Focus on the Samhitas. Each of the Vedas is divided into four main parts: Samhitas, Brahmanas, Aranyakas, and Upanishads. The Samhitas are the most important and contain the core teachings of the Vedas. It is recommended to study the Samhitas of each Veda first before moving on to the other parts. Study the Brahmanas. The Brahmanas are commentaries on the Samhitas and provide detailed explanations of the rituals and sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas. They also contain stories and legends about the gods and goddesses. Move on to the Aranyakas. The Aranyakas are texts that were traditionally studied by hermits and forest dwellers. They contain philosophical discussions and instructions on meditation and spiritual practices. Study the Upanishads. The Upanishads are considered the final and most profound part of the Vedas. They contain teachings on the nature of the self, the universe, and the ultimate reality. It is recommended to study them after completing the other parts of the Vedas. Study the Puranas. The Puranas are a collection of 18 texts that contain myths, legends, and stories about the gods and goddesses. They also provide information on ritual practices, astronomy, and cosmology. It is recommended to study them after completing the Vedas, as they assume a basic understanding of Hindu mythology and philosophy. Study the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. These two epics are considered the most important texts in Hinduism after the Vedas. They contain stories and legends about the gods and goddesses, as well as teachings on morality and ethics. It is recommended to study them after completing the Vedas and Puranas. It is important to note that studying the Vedas and Puranas is a lifelong process, and it is not necessary to study them in a strict linear order. One can start with any text that interests them and gradually build their understanding from there. It is also recommended to study them under the guidance of a qualified teacher or guru.